Assalamualaikum, Amarna Maria.
Assalamualaikum, Abanam Rabia.
Welcome to Malay channel. Today we are going to review how Bangladesh makes money. Understand, Dennis?
Jihan Asher.
Okay, let's watch it.
Bangladesh is regarded as one of the fastest growing economies in the entire world. Its rise in the past 2 decades was attributed to its various emerging sectors. However, the underlying truth to most of where Bangladesh is today should be attributed to one big factor: the government. While they may not be perfect, they have in many ways contributed to the country's economic rise. Furthermore, just like any other country around the world, a government's role in driving a country's economy is a massive undertaking. This is because they are the ones responsible for implementing proper legislation, governing how the country would work, and most importantly, the government is the ones who are responsible for deciding what industry would flourish. For Bangladesh, this is done through its government budget, a program that is presented every fiscal year, aimed at tackling the most challenging problems that need to be fixed in a country, but also to adhere to economic growth and enable the country's public sector to function. For the government of Bangladesh to function, however, it will also need to make money, which is what we call government revenues. These two key components are the most vital factors in enabling the entire government of Bangladesh to cater to its citizens and the rest of its land. To understand how all of these work, we will take a look at each one of them and dissect them in more detail. The first is Bangladesh's revenue stream, or government revenues. In other words, how does the government of Bangladesh actually make money? Well, on an annual basis, the government generates a lot of money every year. The more recent data, however, is published in the 2022 fiscal year. One that the government is expected to make over $46 billion in revenue, a massive figure that is reported to be the highest in the history of Bangladesh. This figure is taken from various sources, which we will also go down in more detail. The first of which comes from what is typically known as tax revenues, a critical component that always stands as the most important within Bangladesh, and every other nation, since its ability to generate money is a lot. This tax revenue is divided into many categories, from income to corporate, to real estate taxes or trade duties taxes. A long list of how taxes work affects the entire government revenue. For the same fiscal year, the government is expected to make $39 billion worth of these tax revenues, or nearly 85% of the total government revenues, which makes it the single largest source of income. The second category for where the government makes money comes from non-tax revenues, or in Bangladesh's case is called non-NBR. These are derived from a myriad of sources. It comes in the form of state-owned enterprises revenues. For example, the Bangladesh Petroleum Corporation, which is handled by the Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources, would take a percentage off of what the business makes. One of these businesses under the corporation is known as the Padma Oil Company, which reports over $2 billion in annual revenues. A part of its income will go straight into what we call dividends, and it would then be sent back to the government. This is one of the many parts of how the government generates from its non-tax revenues. Other than that, the government also makes money from foreign grants or aid. These are generated from foreign institutions, such as the World Bank or Asian Development Bank, or it could also come directly or indirectly from other government agencies, such as the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, or the government of Japan themselves. Now the government makes money every year. As we noted earlier, these are then used and spent to govern the country. It could be to construct a new infrastructure project, it could be to pay down its government employees, or it could even be to buy new military equipment. The long list of where this goes will be discussed in a bit. The total annual expenditure for the same fiscal year of 2022 is expected to be over $72 billion. A massive amount, but wait, why is it more than the government revenues? It is absurdly far more than what they make. How can they do this? We will discuss that more later. For now, let us first see where the government uses these massive $72 billion in the country. The $72 billion annual budget is also a figure that has steadily increased over the years. When Bangladesh achieved its independence, it had only allocated no more than $84 million for its first year. More than 5 decades later, the $84 million would balloon to over $72 billion. This money is allocated from ministry to ministry and local government to local government. From a sectoral allocation budget standpoint, however, it is divided into what we call physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, and general services. The physical infrastructure is divided into the Ministry of Railways, the Ministry of Agriculture, and so on. These basically present themselves in the physical matter of Bangladesh. The money allocated in each division would be used for the construction of a new railway, or it could just be used for maintenance or expansion. For agriculture, it could be to continuously expand its food production to cater to the country's growing population. The physical infrastructure alone is given a budget of about approximately $20 billion. Social infrastructures, on the other hand, deal with human resources and social safety. These are the likes of funding for the country's education system, health services, and even disaster management. Social infrastructure, however, receives a smaller budget of about $18 billion. Finally, general services are used simply to enable the government and public order to function. They receive the remainder of the budget. This brings us to the very question we raised earlier, which is how can the government exceed its budget with its revenues? Well, the government's budget is able to exceed its revenue due to many factors, but the most important concept is known as debt. When a government creates an annual budget plan of $72 billion, whereas the revenue only amounts to $46 billion, the remaining would then be a deficit. This deficit is then refinanced through what we call government or public debt, money that is borrowed domestically or externally. This is one of the reasons why the government debt of Bangladesh has risen to over 148 billion US dollars as of the end of 2021, since they've been incurring deficit after deficit. Now a deficit is absolutely normal. Every country except for a few has always been in a deficit. This is because debt is an instrument, when used properly, and can provide miraculous economic benefits. Hence why Bangladesh's government has been very keen on leveraging such an instrument to hopefully one day see its economy rise abundantly. However, what may be a problem is if debt is not appropriately managed. When debt repayments soar extremely high, this is what comes to be the issue. For Bangladesh, unfortunately, it currently pays down quite significant debt repayments. For the same year of 2022, according to the Economic Relations Division, it had paid down approximately $2.46 billion out of its budget to service foreign loans. This means its foreign debt service ratio stands at approximately 8.4%, or in simpler terms, for every dollar the country makes, 8.4% will go to servicing these debts. Now, many would wonder, is this an issue or a crisis that could happen? Well, while $2.4 billion may seem huge, it is still reasonably manageable since there are far more countries out there that have a ratio far higher than that of Bangladesh. However, the issue that is plaguing the government right now is that the country is not generating enough revenues. Hence, even though it is a small figure, it will play an enormous burden in the future if the government does not support its big government revenues. Here's a quantitative look at this. The government revenue of Bangladesh is only $46 billion, a figure that is just upwards of about 10 to 12%, when we compare it to its annual GDP of $420 billion. This percent of revenue to GDP is one of the lowest in the entire world. For comparison, most developing countries have almost double that of Bangladesh, around 20%, whereas developed countries have about 35%. This can then quickly tell us that if Bangladesh fixes its revenue problem, it can easily pay down its debts, cut its deficits, and even grow a lot faster since it has more capabilities to expand. But how will they fix such a massive gap in its system? Well, this brings us back to the same source of revenue, which is taxes. Bangladesh has a loophole in its taxation system. There are either too many evaders, or there are just not enough rules and legislation to adhere to and enable the country to collect taxes properly. Fixing it, on the other hand, does not have to be extremely difficult. Since the world has already experienced these types of fallacies, all they have to do is follow other governments' very steps to establish a proper system for revenue collection. But since Bangladesh is also a rapidly growing economy, it would be a big task for the government to continuously adopt ever-changing policies that would cater to its country. Nevertheless, if it can expand its economy this fast, it can indeed find a way to cater to any looming crisis, since its growth would just trample down its debts. Anyway, these are just some of the thoughts and fallacies, and changes are hard to come by. Do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.
It's good to know about Bangladesh.
It's new knowledge
New
and it's a fact
Yeah.
that it's happening in every country. And yeah, of course, even including Malaysia, we also have that
It's a lot.
from the World Bank.
Yes.
So yeah, maybe we cannot see Malaysia in the list, but yeah, we are part of
Do that.
yeah.
Every country must have. It's impossible. I think it's not.
Even America also.
Yeah.
Yeah, US also have.
But I'm not sure about UAE or Dubai and
Oh yeah, they're rich.
they're rich.
Yeah. So not sure. Yeah, but yeah, I would love to highlight about the revenue, the country revenue. Bangladesh don't have enough the country revenue. You know, like like here in Malaysia, we have tax everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Tax everywhere. Yeah, even we have to. Let's say if we buy food, there's tax on it.
Yes.
If we stay in the hotel, there's tax on it. If we have business, of course, we have to pay tax as well. If we have
Employee also need to pay tax to the
yeah,
government.
yeah, there is a certain amount that minimum amount of salary, and then start from that and above, we have to pay tax. So tax is basically everywhere in Malaysia. We have to pay. The citizen of Malaysia, we have to pay tax. Of course, there are foreigner also need to pay tax in case that they have business here in Malaysia, or they buy food. Basic needs, right? Food, place to stay, all have that. So it's contribute back to the country, and it's back to the citizen. Hopefully, yeah, we don't want to talk about the crime or whatsoever. Uh, what government do or what, but yeah, the whatever tax, the revenue that country get receive from the citizen, it should be returned to the citizen, like
Yes.
in a good infrastructure, good transportation, yeah, many things we can do.
Maybe good healthcare and
Yeah,
education.
yeah, it's true. It's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. So
Awesome. Thank you so much to those who recommended this video. We gain new knowledge.
right.
If you like this video, please share it to your family members and friends. Don't forget to share it to your social media as well. Please subscribe our channel, Malay Rex, and turn on notification button so you guys won't miss our latest video. Please follow our social media account, Facebook and TikTok, Malay Rex. Thank you so much. See you again at our next video. Bye. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.